So we got a large group today. We also have a special guest. Legendary Tactics is here. They're going to do a recording. So, you know, if you want to get on the YouTube video, just make sure to ask questions during my teaching session on here. Jump into the camera. You too can be on YouTube. All right, so let me lay the groundwork for what we're doing today, and then I'm going to get into the rules explanation for both our Intro to Diplomacy and Era of Empire games. I do those at the same time. You know, for those of you familiar with Kevin Harlan in the NFL, it's like, I'm calling both games at the same time. In Diplomacy and in Era of Empire, you're one of the 7 great powers in the world vying for control over the map. Control in this case means more than half the centers here. Those centers identified by little stars on provinces that you want to pick up. If you get 18 here, you win. If you get 22 over here on Era of Empire, you win. This is an intro game. It's very unlikely that you're going to absolutely win the game in a 4-hour time block. Instead, you want to be the top dog, the person who has the most centers, so that way you win the board. That's another way in which you can end the game. Whoever has the most centers at our time blocks, which in this case is 4 p.m., you're the winner. Maybe you get something special for doing that. So for some background, I got a chance to work on both Diplomacy as well as Era of Empire for Renegade. So if you have a rules question, I'm super gonna know the answer to that question. Right? Once you're assigned one of these 7 powers, you are role-playing as this power trying to take control. The game is split up into years. 1901 here, because this is pre-World War I. 1870 here, this is the age of new imperialism. In a game year, you have a spring turn, a fall turn, and a winter build phase. In the spring term, you have a period of negotiation. That's why you have clocks at every board. In this case, it's going to be 15 minutes for the intro players. At the time of negotiation, you're going to talk to the other players about what you want to do on the board. You can make deals, you can break deals, you can bribe people, whatever you want to do to get them to work with you. It's all fair game. At the end of that period of negotiation, you're going to have a short period, 2 minutes, of order writing, where you will secretly write down on your order sheets what your pieces are actually going to do. Those all get adjudicated simultaneously, as in you show your work to everyone and all pieces are moving at the same time. So that means it's everyone's turn all the time. There's no downtime in this game. So even though it's long, you're like, wow, it's 4 hours. You don't notice it because you're either negotiating with the players, you're writing your orders, or you're adjudicating the board. You're moving the pieces on the board. So negotiate, write orders, adjudicate, that's spring turn, done. And then we go to fall turn. You negotiate again for 15 minutes, then write your orders, and then adjudicate. At the end of that turn is where we're going to perform a check. We're going to look to see how many of these supply centers, aka areas with little stars on them, that you own, versus how many pieces you have on the board. If you end up picking up those supply centers, you grow. You get to add more pieces to the board. If people have taken those supply centers from you, you have to disband or remove pieces from the board. You shrink. In this way, it's a zero-sum game after all of those initial neutral centers, those unclaimed centers, are taken. For you to grow, someone else has to shrink. That's where the negotiation comes in, because you need to work with 2 or 3 other people at the same time to achieve a common goal, to attack that girl or that guy and eliminate them ideally, or leverage them all against each other while you still grow. There's many ways to win this game. It's been around for 70 years. It's not a solve game because you can't really solve people. It's all about the interpersonal skills that you have to display while playing this game. You can be an amazing tactician, but a poor diplomat and fail. Negotiation skills are the most important part. So at the end of the year, we look to see what you get to grow or shrink, and then you go into the next game year. Spring turn, fall turn, and then build phase. You repeat it until the game is over. Now, I mentioned your pieces. What can you actually do with these pieces on the board? Well, you have 2 types that you'll notice. There are armies and there are fleets. In this case, fleet's very obvious for the ships. Armies are these little cannons. There's tanks in World War I. You can do 4 types of actions during your turn. They keep it very simple. Classic, easy to learn, difficult to master game. The first type of action is hold. Hold is you're holding that unit in place with a strength of 1. In diplomacy, they follow a sort of rule of 1. You get 1 order per piece. Each piece has a strength of 1, and you're also limited to only 1 piece per province. Unlike Risk, where you maybe will like build up in Australia, take a chance at Asia, fail, and then you get wiped out. And here, you're limited 1 piece per province. Holding happens if you explicitly write it on your orders. It also happens if you forget to write your orders. It also happens if you make a mistake, intentional or unintentional. So that gives you sort of an idea, like hold is the default. The next type of action is movement. Movement is from your current location to an adjacent location. Armies are restricted in that they can only exist on land. Fleets can exist on land or water spaces. Here's an example for both, right? Army Moscow to Ukraine is an adjacent movement for the army. Fleet Sevastopol to the Black Sea is an adjacent movement for the fleet. Fleet Aden to the Gulf of Aden, appropriately named, is a movement for this fleet. Army Angora to Syria is a movement for this army. You will also, if you play on the large map, understand that you have sort of a micro game. It's about dexterity for using these plotter rods. Everyone is moving at the same time, so it is possible for you to both move into the same location at the same time. Down here, we have Sevastopol to the Black Sea and Ankara to the Black Sea. Strength 1-on-1. What do we think happens?
Bounce.
Bounce or standoff. They will go back to their original location. Strength 1 on strength 1. Over here, we have Armenia to Baku and Moscow to Baku. Strength 1 on strength 1. Bounce. They go back to their original locations. So fleets, to note, can move to adjacent coastal territories. So in this case, I can go to Sevastopol to Romania. Why? They're adjacent. They both border on water and they share a coast. Your fleet is not just on the coast, you occupy the entirety of the province. That's something that's really difficult for a lot of intro players to understand. When you are in that province, you occupy all of it. Right? So movement is simultaneous, which means you can end up in some annoying circumstances where you keep on trying to move to the same place with other players. You keep on bouncing with them. So let's go with this circumstance. Germany orders Munich to Burgundy. Has never happened before in the history of the world. Right? You have Paris also going to Burgundy. Strength 1-on-1. To get around this, the third type of action is known as support. It allows you to lend your strength to an adjacent unit to take an action, either to attack or to hold in defense. So in this case, Marseille is bordering Burgundy. So Marseille could write, Marseille supports Paris to Burgundy, right? I'm supporting my fellow French army in making that attack. So now this is strength 2 on Burgundy versus 1 from Germany. So what do we think happens? France makes it. Germany bounces back. All right. All you need is just 1 more strength and the other unit trying to do something for you to succeed. Same circumstance here. I've got Fleet Black Sea, Army Armenia, and I'm trying to go to Baku. Strength 2 on just Moscow going in on 1. Turkey makes it. Russia bounces back. All right. So that means it can be matched as well. So Odessa is supporting that move. This actually needs to be switched out. Strength 2-on-2 will lead to a bounce. And I'm going to switch out now. I'm going to make sure you got the right pieces down there. So strength 2-on-2 is bounce. The rule for support is this. If you can move there, you can support an action there. And this can happen with your units or anyone else's units on the board, hence the need to negotiate. So here's an example. I've got the fleet in the North Sea. I support Burgundy to Belgium in order as France, Burgundy to Belgium. this is a strength to attack on Belgium. Vice versa is also true. I can order Burgundy supports North Sea to Belgium. Strength to attack on Belgium. If you can move there, you can support an action there. So this is where the vast majority of negotiations come in. I will cut a deal. You support me here, I will support you there. But you don't know if that's going to be true or not until you actually read the orders. And hence that's where the backstabbing component of the game can come in. Of, you told me this, I thought we were buddies, and you ended up stabbing me in the back. And that's why I also say, stick to the role play. Tension occurs only on the board, right? Lying is part of this game, but I recommend in terms of what you can do, only do and say the things that you are comfortable with to have a good time. Like, I prefer to tell the truth when I'm playing. I try to build up that equity with players, and that's what I like to emphasize. Others look for that key moment where they could switch up on their ally to get the big stab and win the game. It's up to you as a player to decide that. So support can be given. Support can also be cut. If you have an outside unit attacking someone that's supporting, you can eliminate that support. So same circumstance over here. We're ordering Paris to Burgundy, Munich to Burgundy, Marseille supporting that. Germany is working with their Italian buddies. So like, hey, stop Marseille for me. Can you send Piedmont to Marseille? Orders Piedmont to Marseille. It cuts the support. So now it is strength 1 Paris to Burgundy, strength 1 Munich to Burgundy, which is going to be a big bounce. So as long as the unit is coming from outside, then you can cut that support. So that's another key aspect of the game. What happens though, instead of you trying to bounce someone out of a territory, if they're sitting in there and you have overwhelming force to knock them out? So Paris to Burgundy, Burgundy's sitting there, and Marseille supporting that attack on Burgundy. 2-on-1, you beat Germany, but they were already sitting there. What happens?
Push somewhere else.
They have to go somewhere else, so they are dislodged, is what it's known in the game. After everyone is moved on the board, you then switch over and you go to retreats. Anyone with retreat is going to write it down in secret. You can retreat to an adjacent location, but it must be unoccupied. It can't be the site of a bounce, where people fought a battle. And it can't be from where the attacker came from. Be pretty annoying if you get knocked out of Burgundy and Germany retreats to Paris. So in this case, Germany could retreat to Munich, to Rouen. They can't retreat to Belgium because England is there, but they can retreat to Picardy or Gascony. They're not able to retreat to Paris because the attack came from there. They're not able to retreat to Marseille because there is a unit there. If you have no available option, you're off the board. Or if you want to strategically, you can choose to walk that unit off the board and destroy it yourself. Sometimes you do that with allies, like, hey, I don't like you got a fleet near here, let me knock you out. You just retreat off the board and rebuild it later when we do that check for how many units versus how many centers. So we've got hold, move, support, and the last type of action is known as a convoy. Convoys allow you to pick up an army and transport it across a body of water. Here's a very simple one. Army in Baku to Romania is my order, right? They're not adjacent, so how am I going to get there? Well, the fleet's order in the Black Sea is convoy Baku to Romania. Picks them up, drops them off as a strength 1 attack. So fleets can transport an army across a body of water using the convoy order. 1 order for the army to move, 1 order for the fleet to convoy that unit. But this also means if I was Odessa, I could go to Romania at the same time, and it's 1-on-1, which is I go back to Baku. So just the same way that I can convoy, I can support those convoys as well. So it'd be pretty boring if Liverpool, this army, was stuck on the island for the entirety of the game. Let's support him and get him over to Norway. So we can order Army Yorkshire to Norway. Fleet North Sea convoys Yorkshire to Norway, and Fleet Norwegian Sea supports Yorkshire to Norway. That's a strength 2 attack on Norway. So how would you stop a convoy from occurring as the other player? Well, you either bring enough force into the province in which they're moving to. In this case, I need a strength 2 on Norway right now. Or you dislodge one of the fleets in the convoy. In this case, we're going to have Germany send Helgoland Bight to the North Sea, and their buddies in France is going to have English Channel support that move. I would dislodge that fleet in the North Sea. That means the convoy can't go off. Not going to happen. So just simply attacking a convoying fleet doesn't disrupt it. You have to knock it out. Convoys, just like supports, can be done across nations. So if I wanted to, I could have multiple nations here. I told you this is a dexterity game. Be involved in putting this army in Yorkshire to North Africa. How would I do it? Yorkshire to North Africa. North Sea convoys, Yorkshire to North Africa. English Channel convoys, Yorkshire to North Africa. Fleet, Mid-Atlantic Ocean, convoys, Yorkshire to North Africa. It will go from Yorkshire all the way to North Africa. If Germany or France decides, I'm going to do something else with my fleet, what do you think happens?
Stays put.
Army stays put. So there's a lot of trust involved in using multiple powers on there. So ultimately, even though you can say you can lie and backstab, diplomacy is a game about trust. Building up trust with others, them having trust in you. If you're just the person that is always lying and deceitful, how many of the other 6 players are going to want to work with you? Very few. So it may work for a game or two, but in the long run, it can come back to bite you. So you can hold, move, support, convoy. At the end of the year, we check to see how many units we have versus how many centers, and we grow if we've picked up centers, we shrink if we drop down. And this is where we have deviation of these 2 games in the build phase. How does it work? In base diplomacy, the original, you can only build in your home centers. That is to say, the places where you start the game are the only places where you can add new pieces. If they are occupied, can't build there. If someone else has taken it from you, can't build there. Those are known as your home centers. Right? In Era of Empire, we've got 2 cool, unique rules because this is a larger map and you need to get more centers to win. Those 2 rules are conscription and conversion. Conscription means you can build in any center that you own. You capture it 1 year, abandon it later, and you can build in that center. You're not just restricted from where you start the game. Conversion allows you during that build phase to switch an army to a fleet or a fleet to an army, so long as it's in a supply center. So you could park a fleet here on the coast, capture this, choose to build an army, and it switches it out and continue along the land. So conscription and conversion are 2 mechanics that are unique to Era of Empire. There's a couple of geographic features to note in each map. This is why you're learning both games at the same time. You have the Suez Canal and the Kiel Canal here. This is purely for fleets. You need to send a fleet first to Egypt here before you can then go to the Red Sea on a turn after. You have to park the fleet in the intermediate spot to go through the canal. Same way with fleets over here, they have to go to Kiel before they go to the adjacent water province after it. On Era of Empire, you'll see a number of arrows marked on the map. Those are known as straits. Your armies or fleets can traverse those provinces that are connected by straits. So you can see the entire of the Japanese islands are connected, as well as like Ceylon to Madras. Armies or fleets can traverse that. In diplomacy, it's less obvious, but there is a connection, a land bridge between Sweden and Denmark. So armies can go between them or fleets can go between them. We just made it more explicit for you. You can go Kiel to Denmark because those are adjacent provinces and they can happen with either armies or fleets. It's a good question.
Can you go Spain to North Africa?
Can you go Spain to North Africa? The answer is no, they are not connected. This is also why it's easier when you see the arrows on there to be explicit. I know they look so close, but guess what? You can't get there with an army, only via convoy. All right. The other thing that is unique is in diplomacy, you have coasts for a few provinces. That's for Bulgaria, for St. Petersburg, and for Spain down here. That is explicitly for fleets. If you're sending a fleet into one of those provinces, you have to specify the coast you're going into. It matters for adjacency. Fleet St. Pete South Coast, Can't go to Norway even though St. Petersburg borders on Norway. Why? You can't tunnel through this. Over here, there are no bi-coastal regions. We got rid of them in this version of the game. Can't make the mistake if we don't allow you to. So you're gonna have to be inventive about how to unintentionally not follow through on your agreements with other players, right? We're gonna create an extra degree of challenge here. So, spring turn move, fall turn move, winter phase, you build and disband, repeat the next game year. You play until someone is the winner, or in this case, we reach the time box and whoever has the most centers is the winner. Are there any other questions before we divide you up to play? For conversion, the question is, if you capture a supply center as a fleet, can you convert to an army or vice versa? The answer is yes, because you've met the condition, you have a unit on a supply center, so therefore you can change it, right? You're gonna have those common restrictions like, I can't convert over an army to a fleet here because I'm not on any coasts. Although that doesn't stop people from trying and be like, oh shoot, like this is a misorder. Are there any other questions?
For the centers?
Yep.
Just as long as you step onto the province or country,
yep.
You get the center?
Ah, that's a very good question. So when you land on a province, do you immediately get it? The change of hands of ownership only occurs at the end of a fall turn. That's when you get credit, and that's why there's little supply center markers to show ownership. So if you go in the spring and you leave in the fall, you don't get credit. You have to be there at the end of the fall turn, and once you capture it, it is yours until someone else takes it from you in a future fall turn. Right? Any additional questions?
Which is the better entry point for a new diplomacy player of the two games?
The better entry point, like you're asking me to choose between my two kids here, like a true Sophie's choice. All right, my personal view as someone who teaches this game a lot is we designed Era of Empire with the feedback from all of you new players in mind. I've taught close to 2,000 people, and there's a lot of common feature requests that they have. Conscription and conversion are mechanics that were brought in because of new player recommendations. The straits on there were brought in because of their recommendations. That we modified this based upon what intuitively feels best. So this is my preferred way to teach. But if you ask what is my favorite game, even though I'm a designer on this game, this is my favorite of all time. Diplomacy is my #1 game. I will.
Diplomatic answer.
I know. Like I've practiced this. He didn't tell me he was going to give me a tough question on there. Any other questions? If not, then we will begin. Oh, we got one more?
Do the centers have a defense?
The centers do not have defense. If you leave it unoccupied and someone walks in, they can take it from you. So watch your back.
Thanks for teaching us, Thomas. We appreciate you.
All right, so we're going to start with Era of Empire. So anyone who wants to play Era of Empire, please raise your hand.